Welcome to Amplify Digest. I'm your host, Lars Schmidt, and let's dig right into this week's updates. I want to open with the return of the Amplify Job Board. This is a job board I launched almost a year ago, and it was on hiatus a bit while we were building out the new learning lab in the Amplify Academy. But now that it's up and running, we've brought it back, and it's a great platform to help you connect with HR people recruiting and talent jobs at progressive companies. And in the show notes, you'll see a preview of a new talent collective platform that I'm launching soon. I wanted to create a way to help my community get added visibility and connect with progressive people roles in organizations. And so I'll be launching a new talent collective in the coming weeks, and you can get a little preview of how that's going to work in the blog post. This is a great piece by HBR on really the root of addressing systemic issues in DEIB efforts. And I think all of the efforts that you are hopefully working on, it's really a matter of getting to the root cause of some of your internal systems. If you're just dealing with things like purely unconscious bias training and things like that, you're not getting to the root of the issue within your organization. And so hopefully if you're watching this, you are committed to this work, and this is a great resource that I think will help you really be sure that you're framing your efforts towards addressing root causes and undoing systemic issues and inequity within your organization. This was a really robust piece from Heidrick Struggles on a chief people officer, first-time head of people guide. So they interviewed a range of CPOs across their client list and kind of portfolio to get advice on what first-time heads of people need to know. So great resource, certainly for all of you in your first-time roles or approaching that. This is a great resource to tap into. Another HBR piece this week is around how to get people back in office and making it social. I think with a lot of the organizations that have had hybrid work constructs, the role of the office is very different than the role of the office in 2019 and prior. You want to find ways to bring your employees together, to create those connections. It's not so much about specific work and deliverables, especially for those of you with companies and employees that have roles that could be done remotely. If you're bringing people together, be sure that you're making that worth their while and creating an experience. I think a lot of it almost likens back to the early days of e-commerce. When e-commerce began growing, retail began shrinking. Retail had to think differently about how you bring people into your store. And I think as we're thinking about the role of the office, we have to do the same thing. I want to flag this, really this article, but also this newsletter. David Green has been one of my go-tos in all things people analytics for years now. And he has a tremendous monthly newsletter that he publishes on LinkedIn that is just a really robust roundup of data and people analytics, news, research, podcasts, interviews, webinars, and more. So if David and his newsletter is not on your radar, you definitely want to fix that. This comes out monthly, and it's well worth your time. And last article I want to flag was a piece by Kathleen Hogan about the human energy crisis. And it's interesting. We've talked a lot about burnout. I think that's a piece that we're covering, pretty actively in the media, but we're not necessarily covering human energy. And yes, they're related, but I think for people who have been operating at or near burnout levels for a while, energy is finite, and it can often be depleted. And many of us are working and operating with a very low battery. So I appreciated Kathleen's perspective in this LinkedIn post, and think it'll be worth your time as well. Next week, I am going to be in Paris for the Unleash World conference. So excited to get back there. First time back for Unleash World since the pandemic. So really excited to be back out there with Mark and the team. If you're going, be sure to let me know, reach out. Maybe we can try to meet up live while we're there. I'm going to be moderating a panel on learning and then also giving a presentation on how to future-proof your people team. So really excited about that. Because I will be in Paris next week, there will not be an Amplify Digest video next week. So that'll be back the following week. I am going to try to do some behind the scenes videos, clips, and posts on Unleash World. So if you're interested in that, be sure that we're connected on LinkedIn. I'll be sharing those there, and on Twitter, you can find me on Twitter at Lars. And last piece I want to leave you with is the next 2 weeks of the podcast are going to be a departure from my typical programming. Later, October 17th is the anniversary of my brother Kai's death, who died 7 years ago from opioid addiction. And every year on his birthday and the week of his birthday, I dedicate my social media to raising awareness around addiction, really with an emphasis of the goal of humanizing addiction and stories of addiction, because this is a disease that affects so many of us. This week or this year, I'm adding a special episode next week on grief, because I think those two things often go hand in hand. And, so many people over the course of the last, 2 years specifically through the pandemic and beyond have been grappling and living with a range of different types of grief. And it is such, like addiction, it's a taboo topic that we don't often discuss. And I want to change that. And so next week's episode is going to be an exploration of grief. And I'll be sharing some of my own stories with an effort to really humanize and normalize these conversations. But so, the next 2 weeks, those will be certainly very heavy topics. And so I wanted to just add this as a trigger warning. I know a lot of people are carrying a lot of, weight and emotional, just stress with them at this time. And so with the topics of addiction, grief, loss, death, long COVID, I cover a bit as well in next week's podcast. If any of those are going to be too emotionally heavy for you to carry, I ask that you kind of take a pass on the podcast for the next 2 weeks. I'll be back towards the end of October with a regular scheduled format. I'm really excited to bring it back with a conversation with Jane Data, the Chief Human Capital Officer at NASA. But just wanted to flag the next 2 weeks of episodes for you, particularly if you need to preserve your peace and avoid those episodes. So that's a wrap for this week. Take care of yourselves. Take care of each other. Hopefully I will see you in Paris. And if not, I'll see you back for the next Amplify Digest in 2 weeks.